Okay, welcome to the Sprint 85 review. Next slide. I don't have a lot to say about that one. Okay, so I guess I'll be going through the Sprint statistics. Dan will talk about the UI. Bronagh and Adam will talk about providers. Tina will do automate. I'll do platform as usual. Alberto will do the rest. And Chris will do documentation. Next slide, please. So looks like it was a pretty even distribution this sprint between bugs and enhancements, and those were the vast majority, and the rest were spread out among all those other things. Next slide. And it seems like we're fairly consistent with the number of PRs between this sprint and the last few sprints. So now that the charts are much better, otherwise I think that one, the one for this sprint, would look really tiny compared to the others.
Yeah.
Next slide. So here we have a fairly equal distribution between the UI and the core. I'm not sure that big. I don't know if I can explain the big number percentage with the integration tests though. So I'm not going to. Next slide. And for the health report, looks like we're pretty much unchanged between from the last sprint. Next one. All right, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Oh, that's me. Okay. So we had quite a few people out on holidays over the sprint, so the actual PR count went down a little bit, but we still managed to get 83 of them out, mostly bugs. Enhancements, there were a couple in the Ops UI, but I think most of that is due to the V2V work. So Parna's going to show us the work they did to finally get that to have an end-to-end demoable project there. So she's gonna show that after this slide. As for the bugs, there was a problem where the data store tags were actually, instead of showing the data store tags, we were showing the tags of the provider above that data store. So fix that. You could select VMs, but the compliance button would never light up. So got that fixed. We were showing the wrong toolbar when you were looking at timelines for providers. So that got taken care of. Little tree issues, these are left over from the refactoring when we refactored the trees. So rebuilding the tree after the provider is edited, and then disabling trees when you're working on in the reports menu editor. Also, credentials and repositories from embedded Ansible, you were able to you could try to manage those when embedded Ansible wasn't available. So we fixed that to disable that when it's not there. All right, next slide, and this is Aparna's going to show us a demo of the V2V end-to-end, so that everybody on ManageIQ can see that. All set, Aparna?
Yeah. So let me start by sharing my screen. Can you see anything right now?
Yes.
Yeah, we see
Looks
it.
good.
Okay. Let me show the browser first. So what I have here is an end-to-end VM to VM migration, which will be a migration of a VMware VM to a Rev VM. And in the course of last 4 months or so, we have been working with various teams and have got this project to where it is right now. So let's get familiar with the screen, the main migration screen. So it's essentially divided into 3 sections. The top section here with these are called the aggregation cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they show the status of migration at any given time. So right now we have 1 migration plan that has not been started, 4 complete, and there are 2 infrastructure mappings. Then the next section is here, right here. It's all about migrations themselves. So they are filtered in this drop down with not started, in progress, and migrations completed. These are the 3 categories. So currently it's in not started, and as you can see, Plan C migration has not been started yet. And then there is a wizard here that creates the plan wizard. Basically, it's for creating the migration plan, and we'll get to that later in the demo. And the third section here is about infrastructure mappings, and you can see the details right here. Again, there is a wizard to create the infrastructure mapping. Now the wizard consists of these 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and VM migration in itself can be a very daunting task, and I think that the wizard makes it very easy and extremely intuitive. I think UX has done a great job here to make it so easy for us to follow. And with that background, I think I'm going to show the actual end-to-end migration. So let me share my QuickTime player. So step 1, put the infrastructure mapping, fill up the mandatory fields, and next, pick up the source and the target clusters, add mapping. Next, now based on the cluster in the previous step, we have data stores here, so source and target. Select them and add mapping. Likewise for networks. And that is it. This will create the infrastructure mapping for you. And there it is on the list. Those are the details. Next step is to create the plan. So pick the mapping that we just created, give a name. Let me just pause here for a second. The radio button choice. So the first choice is you can import a CSV file that contains the list of VMs that you can migrate. And choice number 2 is let the wizard discover the VMs for you automatically. So I'll go with the default and pick that choice. Next step. These are the VMs that were discovered for us, and they are available for migration. So for this demo, I'm going to pick one, go to the next step. And again, there's a choice here if you want to run the migration later or immediately. I'm going to go with the default. So there it is. The plan has been created, and it's in the not started list right there. All right, so let's go ahead and migrate. And pretty soon the progress bar is going to show and show us the status of the migration. Now while this is going on, let's create another plan. Same steps. Picking another VM. Let's go ahead and migrate that. So as you can see, 2 plans coexisting together, running in parallel on the screen. While this is going on, I can go ahead and drill down into the plan and see the VM details. And then we can also drill down into the other plans that have been completed. And it's all success here. One thing I would like to point out that although the demo is all about successful migrations and happy paths, error reporting has a high emphasis here. I mean, whenever there's error, we show it in the UI right away whenever we can. So these plans are still in progress, 2 migration plans in progress, as you can see on the top aggregation card. And other things I would like to add are, this is a React Redux project. So all the modern front-end technologies have been used, and we have also extensively used the Patternfly library, Patternfly React. So all the UI elements that you see here are thanks to the Patternfly React library. This is going to take a few more seconds. And there we have the notification for the successful completion of Plan 1. The status up there has changed. So let's go ahead and look at the completed plan. And there it is. And that's about it. Back to you, Dan.
Perfect. Thanks, Aparna.
Sure.
All right, that was great to see the whole end-to-end thing all done, and nice explanation of all the details. Appreciate that. All right, next slide, and we're done.
Okay, so I'm going to share an update on the public cloud providers, and Adam will share an update on the on-premise providers. Next slide, please. So most merge pull requests this sprint came from the VMware provider repo, followed jointly by the OpenStack and Lenovo providers, followed by Azure. Next slide, please. So this sprint, Alex improved the method by which we gather the list of regions from the Amazon provider. So regions are available via the SDK, but given that we need a region to connect to the SDK in the first place, we have to gather them another way. So previously, we maintained a hard-coded list, adding 1 new region at a time when requested. And now we run a rake task to gather all the regions supported by Amazon. So this ensures we have an up-to-date list each time we run the rake task. And then Tom enhanced and fixed a number of bugs in the gathering and the display of Amazon firewall rules. And this includes support for IPv6. Next slide, please. Over to Adam.
Thanks, Bronagh. So for the OpenStack provider, this sprint they added an event catcher to the Cinder block storage manager to facilitate targeted refresh. And they also fixed a handful of refresh failures in both the Cinder manager and the undercloud infra manager. On the VMware side for vCloud, the xCloud team added graph refresh for the cloud manager. And this, they just put in a PR for the network manager, so that'll be in next sprint. There are further improvements to the vSphere streaming refresh, so that's getting a lot closer. And then next sprint will be even further. We also increased the DRB packet size for the communication between the refresh worker and the Vim broker. If you had more than 10,000 VMs, you were going over the 50 meg packet size limit, and so we just bumped that up. And that's it for providers. Next slide.
Thanks, Adam. We had 14 PRs merged this sprint. For V2V, Lucy added methods to extract the V2V log from the conversion host, and Bill added a validate VMs method to support the API transformation mappings call. Drew Yu continued the retirement as request work with adding support for service bundles and adding task information when available to the service retirement state machine update status method. Next slide, please. Brant Evans enhanced the import-export rake script to support service dialogues. The dialogues rake script is no longer needed and is deprecated with this change. Eric has made several important dialogue changes, including a code refactoring resulting in significant overall dialogue performance improvements and specific improvements for field loading and refresh operations. Eric resolved an issue where certain dialogue tags are unable to be saved. This happens when a tag category has a different name than its description. Workload, for example, has a description of workload and a name of function. He also resolved an issue where a dynamic checkbox was not updating properly and the default value was not set correctly. And that's it. And over to Greg.
Okay, we had 33 PRs merge on the platform side, mostly bug fixes. Brandon made a fix to registration with proxy settings. He also made a change to clean up related messages when you deleted his own queue messages. Yuri did some more additional cleanup with shutdown and exit messages marked as error that were never removed from the queue, from the MIQ queue. He also made a change that fixed the widget generation where we were changing the current group for super admin when we were actually doing the generation, and actually it could have left the admin in a state where his current group was a group that he was not a member of. That kind of was messing things up, the widget generation. And Joe Raffanello made a change to chargeback, so now he's an expert there. He fixed the bug in chargeback where if you didn't select the specific fields, it would not calculate the cost for the other fields that you actually did select. Seems strange that seems like that had been there for a little while, but I guess that most people probably add all the available fields on there and you wouldn't see it. And that's it for the platform. I don't know if Alberto.
So on the API side, we had a couple of bug fixes that come in. One is that we needed to send the proper refresh parameter down to the resource action initializer. That was fixed by Eric. Next, we had an issue in the user token server service where we were not doing the right sensitivity for the user ID match. So that was causing SAML authentication to fail. Some providers were sending in the user ID environment in a mixed case, and that was causing that setup to fail. So that was fixed by Jody. Next slide, please. Okay, so one enhancement that came in by Douglas. So this is adding support for changing the password for providers. And it's a change password action, async operation, so we get a regular result action signature. So that can be done via the post to the provider's resource or doing it in bulk from multiple providers. Signature down there showing the change password, and you got to pass in the current and the new password for that. Next slide, please. Okay, so the one enhancement that went in for B2B was the validation of VMs or transformation mappings. So that's a validate VMs action on the resource of the transformation mappings, and you essentially send in the names and the UIDs for those VMs, and so that gets sent into the specific transformation mapping resource, and you get the results of the triplets of valid VMs and valid VMs and conflict VMs used by the V2V UI. Next slide, please. Okay, so API version 3 documentation was merged, so that should be available shortly in the ManageIQ or Docs API website. And that's it for the API. Next slide, please.
Hey, for documentation in this sprint, we have also had pretty much everyone out on vacation. So we have a whopping 4 PRs merged. All 4 were enhancements. Some of the highlights are we've added documentation for generating reports on an OpenSCAT scan of images. We've added an admonition and link out to Smart State Proxy K-base solution. And lastly, we added a table on the default roles and the accessible product features. That's all for documentation.
Okay, that concludes the Sprint 85 review. We'll be back here on May 23rd, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thanks.